Hi, readers. It's Zena, publisher of Enlivened Books. I am here today with John Morrow, the artist, illustrator, writer, poet, shaman, mystic, uh, inner explorer of multi-dimensions, and author of Keepers of Color, this exciting new book from Enliven that's out this month. And it's April of 2018. If you're watching this in 2020, you should still go get a copy. So we have some other guests here today. We have John and Ciela, who the book is dedicated to, and Tiffany, who's been helping John as well. And we're gonna have a really fabulous book discussion and learn a little bit more about what the Keepers of Color is, and who they are, and a little bit about the journey. So welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you, Zena. I feel like when you're describing me, you could have been describing you, aside from the author of that book. Everything else was totally describing you as well, which is why we got along instantly.
Yes.
You saw me, you saw yourself in me, and vice versa, and why I'm so excited to be working with you on this. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. This is my first webinar. It's my first book. Certainly not my first foray into color. I've been exploring color my whole life. Coloring was my meditation before I knew about meditation. And it's really always been my guide, and my art has led me through my own healing when I've processed large things going on in life, whether my parents' divorce or a breakup or a transition. It's always led me to what's next and where my heart and soul wanted to go. And clearly it wanted to become an author and meet all of you.
That's great. That's great. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I figured since we have Tiffany and Ciela, I wonder if you guys have any questions too. We can make this like a real book club, even though we're virtual. So, John, tell us a little bit about Keepers of Color and what your hope for it is in the future. And as well as, what is your hope for it with readers, and what can readers expect?
Wonderful. So it's based on the hero's journey, which is a phrase that was coined by Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell was a modern day scholar. He was a teacher at Sarah Lawrence University, and he loved mythology. And as a little boy, he would go to the Natural History Museum in New York City, and he fell in love with cowboys and Indians, like the Indians and Native Americans.
I didn't know that.
And then when he got to college, he was doing a world studies class and found out about like India, like Asia, India. And was like, wait a second, there's other Indians? And he realized that the mythologies and stories were very same, just different characters. And he was like, this is interesting. And then he realized all across cultures, there were the same exact story, a mythology, an overarching arc between all heroes and myths and tales. And he became fascinated by this and made his life a lifelong journey into that. And so he coined this phrase called the hero's journey, which is really an endeavor, a cycle for anyone going from the world as they know it now to a new world. That can be a level of success, a job, a relationship, becoming a mother or a parent.
And without.
Exactly, within and without. And so this book, in its largest, grandest hopes, allows to handhold you, the reader, through that journey. And I created this little character, or really it came through me, his name. It's really, I say he, but his name is Color, but Color is never defined as a he or a she. Color is simply color. And color is your guide, your little shaman, your Sherpa, your well-trained, well-versed, explorer through the inner worlds. And he walks you through your own hero's journey to bring your dreams, your hopes, your prayers, your visions to life.
Awesome. Well, just that. Not an ambitious book at all, is it?
Well, one of the things I will say is Zena, one of the most amazing things about Zena is she really loves stories. She's a storyteller, connoisseur, and she always believes that people have two stories inside of them. The one that they think they're going to tell or write, and the one that really wants to come through them. Literally, she gave me, I would say, like 99.9% carte blanche, which is probably unheard of, and I don't want to even speak that to other hopeful authors, to tell my own story and have that one come through, because she saw that it was taking me for a ride, and she goes, just trust it. And also I will say, Zena gave me, on our first meeting, this book called Woman Who Run with the Wolves. And she just knew I was overtaken by mythology and my own personal story. And she's like, you're good. You've done my homework that I gave you. Read this book and you're following it. So let's see what comes through you. And so this came through me, and my hope is to extend that lineage and hope that others bring their own story forth, whether that's an actual book or their life lived fully or whatever their dream is, that they can have it take them for a wild ride. And the very first step of the hero's journey is listening to the call, hearing the call to adventure. And I answered the call. It came out in this book, and I walk you through listening to that call. We can go through. The very first keeper is named Owedo, and he's a dolphin, and he teaches you all about listening, learning how to be still and listen to that call when the call of the soul.
Wow, yours is colored. I just had to go into so.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to backtrack. Wow, beautiful. Okay, I'm going to be jealous here. So let's backtrack a little. So
yes,
for you readers, and Ciela is in the shot because Ciela is, I think, your spirit animal. Is she not?
There's nothing she's really not for me. She is.
Yeah. So one of the things that I love is that the book starts out, and you have to actually decide how high or how deep the water is going to be that you're going to dive in. And this is really setting the goal. So readers and colorers, the book has a lot of content to guide you through, a lot of journal entries, and they're called within queries, which I think is just so brilliant. And what surprised me about you, John, when we were processing this book, and I think this book proves men can give birth. But I think when, I realized there was a soul that was wanting to come through you. And as a mama, I know that, when Sage and Mia wanted to be born, they picked me, and I feel like color picked you. And so with this book, I feel like what happens when, this with inquiries and all these things, what I discovered about you is that you're just as talented a writer and wordsmith as you are an artist, which I didn't expect. I didn't know that about you. And so I love that the writing is beautiful, the mythology, these characters that came through. But I really thought that maybe you could read just this first passage to our viewers and go in a little bit as to, because this first passage really is it's so relevant right now and what we're facing on the planet. And, there is a lot of darkness, and, we have lost some of our imagination and our innocence with everything, with the wars and with politics as we know it right now, and with the environment. So I was thinking we could just start out and read. You could do an author reading for our viewers of the first passage.
Perfect, thank you. And to just sort of echo and stand on what you just said. This book is, Zena and we're also still in the evolution of what is this? We know we gave birth, and it's like a child that's sort of, is it going to be a lawyer? Is it going to be an artist? We know what it is, but it's also, it's still developing. And I think it's because it's so many things. It's pep talk, it's coloring book, it's journal, it's myth, it's folktale. It's new, exactly. And I think that's
not like any other coloring book ever.
Exactly. And we're not just saying that.
No.
And so that's what's beautiful about it. So the very, very, very first line is, this is a tale that reminds other tales it's their time to be told. And so that is, honestly, hopefully, you, the readers, call to tell your story, to live your dream, live your vision. This is a tale that reminds other tales it's their time to be told. Once inside a time, the world within was full of color and light. Imagination and creativity were the laws and loves of the land, held in balance from all directions by the Great Mystery. The Great Mystery has a million names, all of which point to the loving, luminous source of life that dwells inside every atom and everything. It is the benevolent force that pumps blood through our body, guides rivers to the ocean, spins the planets in orbit, and turns winters to spring. Stretching from one corner of the world within to the farthest reaches of the world as we know it, span the Rainbow of Remembrance. The rainbow was a brilliant and beautiful bridge that connected the heavens to the earth and the eternal to the present. It was a resplendent reminder of the magic that could be found not in some faraway land or in some enlightened mountaintop, but here and now in this breathtakingly majestic world. All creatures who dwelt beneath this colorful curve believed in the power of possibility. It was a place where dreams mattered, and every being was guided along their one-of-a-kind journey to live out a uniquely magnificent purpose. To ensure that the Rainbow of Remembrance shone morning, noon, and night, the wisest of sages throughout the kingdom were employed to safeguard this spectrum. Each was assigned a hue in the rainbow, conveyed a virtue to live by, and offered a talisman for the taking. Collectively, these kind and courageous custodians were called the Keepers of Color. The keepers were a festive, celebratory bunch entrusted to color everything under the sun, from bird wings to coral reefs to the nuances of nature, were all painted in praise and play. Wherever there was color, there was life. But as true with guardians of anything sacred, the keepers of color would all soon be tested. That's a little ominous page turner right there. So one day, no one quite knew how or why, though many denied it or looked the other way, it started to happen. Dreams began disappearing. Like a thief in the night, something invisible and unseen snuck in, and soon the world within became subdued, covered in a hazy, nebulous fog of forgetfulness. The world was in a crisis of color. A mysterious shadow formed like a sedating mist atop the land. It tore families apart, estranged neighbors, and isolated nations. Distraction and devastation ran free, while chaos and suffering grew into merciless tyrants. Sounds pretty familiar. Something needed to change, and something was unwilling to. Thankfully, even amid the surrounding gloom, there was a glimmer, a small yet immensely powerful seed of hope. Within this seed, the destiny of the world and the promise of its soul rested. The keeper sent out calls for help across the kingdoms, hoping that someone, anyone, would answer. Their calls beckoned to those who would break out of their protective shells of comfort and conformity, inviting each being to sprout towards a new life and push beyond the all-encompassing darkness into the light of another reality. Little did they know, help would arrive from the most reluctant and unsuspecting of heroes. Ta-da! Color.
So this is, you're really talking about the darkness that has been unleashed on our world through divisiveness and through forgetting of our dreams, and through the mechanization of humanity as workers for the American dream, or whatever the dream is that is outside of themselves, that is based on money or based on things that aren't necessarily what feeds the soul. And so this is a call to action for people to go within themselves again and find their original dream, the original thing that they came to earth with, and what they and the gift and the color that they're supposed to bring. It reminds me a lot of the Never-Ending Story, and Falkor the Luck Dragon, who I've threatened to have tattooed on me. I kind of think I need to get a tattoo of color instead. But it's that forgetting of the dream, and the Keepers of Color is bringing us back into that and giving us permission to reacquaint ourselves with the deep parts of our being and our soul.
Yeah, and that call, the dream, doesn't go away. It'll always knock. It'll knock from the inside. It'll knock in a million ways from the outside too, with things that remind you of what you're here to do. I had a dear friend who, right before I wrote this book, whose father was passing away. He lived well into his 90s, but he realized, and he told us the story, his dad always said, his dad even moved. He grew up in Paris, and he finally moved to the south of France. And was like, one day I'm gonna go to my studio. I'm gonna make art. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to my studio. One day it was always one day, one day, one day. I'm gonna go to my studio. And he even had the studio. He even moved to the south of France to have that idyllic, bucolic countryside living. Had a studio, except from his house. One day I'm gonna go to my studio. And then one day what actually happened was I think he fell. He fell and broke his hip and then had a stroke. And then the one day never happened. He actually couldn't actually go to his studio anymore. And so I think that call will always happen and it'll keep knocking. And I just find it's better to respond to it rather than regret that we didn't. And
always putting it off. Like, I feel like I coach so many people and, to write their books. And, I know, like with you, with Keepers of Color, like it wanted to be born through you. And a book it chooses us, right? A story chooses us and must be told. And if we're always waiting to write it or letting everything else get in the way, there's only one person that is responsible for it, but the world misses out on it. And they don't even know what they're getting to miss out on.
Neither do we, right?
Yeah, like the tragedy is so grand and vast. I say, if you have a call to write or express or paint, like you must.
Yeah.
There's no, my husband is a closet sci-fi writer, and he's been working on this, sci-fi trilogy for a decade. And I keep saying to him, this is the time. Like, go take 2 weeks off of work, vacation time, and don't worry about us. Like, finish it. Like, you don't have to think about it. And, I think if more people were in support of the creative process, that doesn't necessarily look like anything until it's complete, then we would be able to have a more colorful world. And that's what I did with you and letting you have the freedom. Who tells an artist what to do? It's just like, to me, it's so asinine. Like, why would you say, like, oh, you have this vision? Oh, no. You gotta go this way. It's like, it's amazing. And so what happens with Color Next is he tells the reader that he lost their dream. And what's really happening with that, though, is you've lost your dream.
Yeah.
Which is why you found the book and you're about to reacquaint yourself with it, right?
Yeah. He plays like willing scapegoat, I think, in a way. He really does. And he's just an aspect, but he also prefaces himself, he's saying, I live inside of you. I'm a part of you. That color, that light, I lost it. He takes full responsibility, and he's willing to go in there with you and find it. And basically, I find that I love what you said. I think this book is the boldest statement I think this book makes is saying that, especially in the outside circumstances, when things look dire and gray and nightmarish, it's actually our dreams that actually can heal it. We actually need you to bring that crazy thing, as impractical as it seems, to life as the healing for yourself and the collective.
Well, it's like, what if Elon Musk was like, oh, yeah, I'm not gonna create a reusable rocket. Like, it's like, there are those that we can look to that actually follow the crazy ass dream and actually go for it. And we're always looking to them for the answers. But what I like so much about this book is it draws you inward to look for the answers of your own reusable rocket, your own impossible dream, your own creative endeavor, that, it puts the onus back on you. It makes you take responsibility for claiming that which is going, that which you came to the earth to carry forth, the message. And I feel like in this day and age, the arts have been cut from the schools, the public schools. We spend so much more on tax cuts for the rich and for the military than we do for art and creativity and innovation outside of tech and military. I feel like, when I was in high school, I was a school photographer, and I spent my afternoons in the dark room. And that doesn't happen anymore. Like kids don't get access to the validated creative arts in a way, the training, the exploration. And so I feel like we've lost our creative identity, and color is here to the rescue.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, spoiler alert, good news and bad news, it's on you. It's on us. That's what this is. And um, the the interesting about writing this is a story that it doesn't have I mean, literally, I'll even show you guys the last page where it says, there is no end. There is no end. There is no end. Like, this story needs to be lived. It needs to actually, the world that we want or are aiming towards can't come true without your participation. It's required of it.
Well, I want to just go through a few of these.
Yeah, we'll go chronologically, probably way better.
No, it's okay. We're good with it. I mean, we're not really like linear people. I think that's why we all kind of are here together. So I think we're good.
And neither is the journey, by the way. Neither is the hero's journey. There are elements, and it's shown in an arc usually, but it's not necessarily linear. You could meet the goddess first thing, and you could kind of go through a dark night in the soul, which then becomes your call to adventure.
Exactly. You know, what I love too is you've got these shamanistic sort of totem guide teachers. And I just want to show our readers some of these amazing illustrations. So one of the things about this book is it was supposed to just be a coloring book, and now it's filled with color. And there's a lot of places for you to write and to also color yourself. So this book, not only did John pour heart and soul, I mean, these illustrations and this art, it's just original incredibleness. I mean, you can't even, it's breathtaking, but it's also, there's nothing like it. Look at this. I mean, look at,
you get to decorate your own ship and masthead and sail.
You know, and just in good conch sense, you know, instead of conscious. Look.
Lots of puns, lots. Maybe too many.
You are the king of puns. But what's incredible is, Tuga. I love Tuga so much. I love Tuga. Which character is your favorite?
I mean, that's like picking a favorite child. That's the picture I was going to have you show. Tuga is a turtle, and so each keeper teaches you a virtue. Tuga is a turtle, so he teaches you patience. And this is a mandala.
That's my untalent, by the way. Patience. It's my untalent. Patience.
What's
my
untalent?
first says untalent.
Like you're not very good at it?
It's not a word. It's the thing that I'm least good at.
Well, I mean, that's, as we know, it's probably this giant strength of yours, right?
Well, my first husband, as we were getting divorced, he said, you know, you're going to have to learn patience at some point.
Yeah.
So I really love Tuga because the art of attention is such a good one. But yeah, I think readers and colorers are going to find there's nothing like this in the world.
So they give you little talismans, or what I'm calling keepsakes, and this is Tuga, he's the turtle. It says patience is the key. And they, very much inspired by Zena's love of tarot, these are like tarot cards.
Well, that was what I first approached you for. I was like, hey, you want to do a line of tarot cards with me? And you're like, sure. And look what we did.
Look what in my book, exactly.
And this is my totem.
Ruby. Ruby is all about enthusiasm and joy and quickness of spirit and lightness of heart. And
she's lightness in being. And she's my next book, Love in Detail. I've had these interactions with hummingbirds since I've had to pay attention to finding joy because I've been so upset about climate change and everything. So it's just like all of a sudden Ruby is everywhere. I have Ruby envy.
Well, the amazing thing is I've been telling people on social media is it's what color is your inner hummingbird? That's really what you get to.
Look at this. Weight and Bane. I mean, look at poor Ruby, poor us. We're trying to be our light selves, but we just like are always trying to lift the world with our little wings and
our hard on ourselfness.
We're hard on ourselfness. Exactly. Yeah. It's like my untalent would be being kind to myself. But look at this. Oh, I mean, these are just pure magic, John. It's
Yeah.
really, this book, I honestly feel like it's not only such a work of art in the sense of writing. Oh, and Tiffany says, so true. The writing is poetic, visually rich, and powerful.
Mm.
Reading it aloud is such an additionally beautiful experience. I
Mm.
agree. I agree. But the just the imaginativeness and the secret, all the little secret symbols in everything. It's, I mean,
It's amazing.
where did
Listen,
this come from? Tell
I
us about your process a little bit.
I have to. I mean, as I try to play both artist and audience, and it's amazing. It's an incredible work of art. You're right. And where does it come from? Where does anything come from? That's what I just wanted to be in. I want to live in nonstop engagement with the muse. And so wherever she comes from, wherever imagination, wherever Elon Musk's idea for renewable everything comes from, I hope it came from that same place.
Look, the elixir of eternity. Maybe it comes from there, John.
Probably.
Look at this illustration. It's just
A little alchemy for you, a little honey, sweeten your world with honey.
breathtaking.
Yeah.
So what would you like readers to know if you could tell them three things to remember about your process and your mission and what you want the keepers of color to give them? What are the essential three things you would like them to know?
I would say number one is 100% responsibility for their life. That's probably number one. 100% responsibility. To become a keeper of color is, I do believe that we all are, keepers or holders of the sacred flame, whatever that is inside of us. That could be whatever that dream is that we want to bring forth. So that could be a keeper of compassion, of virtue, of earnesty, of hope, to keep that alive. And it's required of us to keep it alive and actually bring it forth into this world. So I'm counting on people. I'm counting on them to make their dreams come true so I can live inside of it. Like you said, think about any quote that anybody has been inspired by, whether it's Martin Luther King or Gandhi or Rumi or Susan B. Anthony. We were only inspired by them because they lived this. They made it happen. They actually lived their life, and we're inspired by that. And we too can be that and create that world that we're all collectively envisioning.
Well, it's also original. I talk a lot in my next book about original intent. Like, what was the original intent, the destiny, that intention that actually put your cells into being, right? That actually made you take form to execute on, to actually accomplish. And this book, just, I keep going back to it. I have it on my nightstand, and I do that thing where I ask a question and I just open a page.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, oh, okay, that's exactly what it was. But it's that withinness that we all have that is so original and so colorful and so interesting to others. And when we tamp that down because we've got this old story that it's not supposed to be told or it's not supposed to be shared, then the world starts to become a very black and white place.
Yep.
And I feel like your mission, if I may, is really to bring imagination and color back into the world from that original place of being that we were in when we were born. We knew we came here with a special mission and purpose, and then we forgot. And now it's time to get back to it because the world's depending on it.
Yeah, I think the other two little insights are, one of it is believe in yourself. Just believe in yourself. And then also, there's some version, I haven't quite articulated it, but to not be afraid of the dark. To not be afraid of the dark. And this really has you go in because, as babies, we're swallowed in darkness, in the womb. Seeds are in the dark before they grow. Stars are in the darkness of space. Imagination, dreams all happen in the dark. And, Carl Jung said that in the shadow is where we find the gold. And there is a part, I would say, if I had a favorite character, it is Honor. Honor's, if you go back a few pages, Honor is, he's probably a seeker or the wise man. He's right before there. There he is, yeah. He's the badger. and he leads you into the dark, inside yourself. He's the very first one that says, you're going to be okay. We're going to look at your shadow. We're going to look at your fears, and it's going to be okay. And that there's riches and treasures in there. And if you think about stories that you've loved, whether it's Harry Potter or Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, the treasures are usually in a dark cave, or the treasure is guarded by a dragon or a monster. And that we have to learn, we have an inner lantern that we can use to go in there and find the treasure within ourselves. And so finding our dream requires a little bit of scariness. And so I invented a little character to hold your hand and go into the darkness with, and I promise you'll be all right. Bringing your awareness, bringing your trust in your heart, you'll be fine.
Even if you're scared of spiders.
Yeah.
He even made a spider beautiful.
I know. She's good. She's the bad guy in this book is called the gray area. And the gray area is, the metaphor for doubt and confusion and ambiguity and, vagueness and the places where we're stuck and stagnant in life, not going after the dream.
And it reminds me of my gypsy grandmother, what she used to always say to me is "Oh, Zinetska, God did not make you to be mediocre or lukewarm. He wants you to be either hot or cold, but be something all the way. Like God did not create you to sit on a fence." So I just love the passion and all of that in here. And Ciela, I'd love for you, before we sign off today, I'd love if you wanted to give us a little bit of how you've responded to this as a friend, a reader, a muse. And, I met John through you, and it's been a great pleasure. And your experience with the Keepers.
Well, thanks, Zena. It's really an honor to be here and also just to witness this process, because I also have a book. And John and I have been going through it together. I got to witness also just the creation, the gestation, the coming forth of this dream from within John. And it's been super inspiring, and I'm so proud of him. Really, and if you go through the book, or when you go through the book, it's such an incredible journey. And I've been able to watch John go through that. So really, it's super authentic. It's a really authentic experience. And when I was thinking about what is this, when you were saying, John, we don't really know. And it's one part that has been really coming up for me going through the book is that it's intentional. It's intentional coloring book. So it's, you can color, and there's so many benefits from that, just relaxation. It's a meditation. But because John weaves in these intentional questions and curiosities and is bringing you through inquiry, that it really allows you to color with intention. So as you're meditating on the thoughts, you're meditating on your questions as you're coloring, and it's coming through the colors onto the page. So there's actually so many gifts as you're going through it. So I've enjoyed it so much, and it isn't just a coloring book. It's so much more. It's a journal. It's a way to see yourself. It's a mirror. It's a colorful mirror. I think it's a mirror that reflects the past, the present, and the future, because the questions really have you reflecting on who you've been. And as you're reflecting on who you've been, you're able to then start exploring who you can be. And then it just brings you right into the present, because as you're coloring, it's a very present moment process. And that color is actually moving from your heart onto the page. And every single page is going to be different in your own coloring book. And every single coloring book is going to be different for everyone else, because we're all so unique. So I think it's also really exciting that we're going to be able to see and share, and on social media really get to see everyone's expression of these same pages and just see how different they are, how unique we all are. So we've been going through it together. I've been coloring with John sometimes, and it's so fun. It's fun to be able to do together also. I think we can do it alone, we can do it in groups, we can come together and color and share, and relax and rest in the colors.
Mm.
Yeah, it's been wonderful.
Absolutely. I think that's so eloquently said. And um, also, I love the idea of having coloring circles, you know, and doing the exercises together and the with inquiries, and then you know, having a discussion group around it. I think coming together in friendship and connectivity is really healing. And when we do it in our small communities or in our tight friend circles, it actually has a world effect. There is a, you know, the butterfly effect. And so I think that's beautiful, Ciela, and great. Oh, and I love Runa. I haven't shown them Runa yet. Oh, she's so beautiful.
Runa is, if you turn to her, let's see, I think it's the page right before her or after her. Let's see. Yeah, that one. So in the wheel, in the hero's journey wheel, there's always the lowest point. I think it's called the nadir. Nadir is that term, but it's you're in the abyss. You're in the you've reached the lowest point of the journey, and you're confronted with your own self, your own shadow, your own stuckness. And I didn't know, I was in that process with the book, and I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to move through, and I was literally praying. I was on my bed going, I need help. Like, show me, please. Like, somehow, how do I move through? And then this voice, which felt like Runa's voice, came through and said, you know, there's only two instructions for life. One is love, and the other is rest. All, you know, it said, you take care of the loving, I'll take care of the rest. And,
Yeah.
and so just to be able to, that's the Shavasana of the book. And Runa's section is the only section where you don't have, it's not a heavily, there's a whole poem where all you get to do is just rest and read and not have to do any work. You know, I've been dragging you through, not dragging, I've been lovingly, inspiringly guiding you through this journey and the hard part, and then you're just able to be rewarded with this rest. And then Oyate at the end is the white buffalo, white bison, he's like a grandfather and a child at the same time, an elder and a happy little bison Buddha, who is the, and so from an actual color, like the color spectrum perspective, white holds all colors. And so you end with the convergence of colors coming together in white prismatic light. And you get to go off in your dream catcher. Here's your little dream catcher with all the little keepsakes strung along, and you get to take that home with you and know that you went on this incredible journey.
That's amazing. So one of the readers says, the Keepers of Color book itself is like a prism. Light catches it and a color and keeper pop out, different each day, and shines just the way it needs to. I think that's a really beautiful way to complete this Enliven Book Club, our virtual book club. It's so exciting to have you, John. I'm so honored to be your publisher.
Thank you.
Ella, thank you for being a panelist today. I know you weren't expecting it, but you know, I adore you and can't wait for your first book to be done. And for all of you readers, you can go to johnmarro.com, JONMARRO.com. You can follow John also on Instagram. His Instagram is inspiring. He's got a lot of beautiful social commentary, political commentary, environmental commentary, not to mention all the Keepers of Color art and insights. And if you are interested in buying the book, we would love for you to buy it at your local independent bookstore or Barnes & Noble. And if you don't have any of those close by, you can also go to Amazon. But always support independent booksellers first. So we thank you all. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, John. Thank you, Ciela. Thank you, Tiffany, and all of those who have joined us today. We look forward to seeing you post hashtag Keepers of Color onto your social media as you color through this incredible journey. Thank you so much. Mwah.
Thank you.
Thank you.